The orbital station Arinder, 7 floated against the backdrop of a violet nebula, its steel spires glinting faintly in the light of a nearby star. To Kalen Eris, it looked less like a beacon of peace and more like a fragile ornament, one stray push from shattering. He stepped off the docking ramp, adjusting the collar of his envoy's jacket. He wasn't a diplomat by training, just a ship engineer pulled into politics because he could fix things when they broke. Machines, treaties, sometimes even people. Still, the stares from both sides reminded him he was an outsider here, a human in a place that wanted no surprises. At the far end of the reception hall, she appeared. Princess Leora Veari, tall and statuesque, draped in a robe the color of midnight. Her silver-lined eyes were sharp, assessing him like a specimen. Every motion was measured, as though warmth itself had been drilled out of her bones. The silence in the hall deepened when she spoke. "You are the human envoy?" Her voice was low, steady, perfectly controlled. Kalen inclined his head. "Kalen Eris. Engineer by trade, envoy by accident. I'm here to see this station stays in one piece, preferably without anyone killing each other." Her lips pressed into the faintest line. Direct words. Typical of your kind. The translator on his wrist buzzed, but the meaning carried without it. Disdain. Still, he smiled faintly. "I could try poetry, but I've been told my metaphors collapse under pressure." For a heartbeat, her eyes flickered. Not amusement, but something like surprise. Then the mask returned. The formal introductions ended, but the tension clung. Kalen followed her through a corridor of glass panels. Beyond them, the stars stretched infinite, cold and beautiful. Leora walked as though she owned them. "Your people," she said without turning, were their emotions on their faces. "It is unsettling." "And your people," Kalen replied, "build walls so high no one can tell if you're angry or if you're dying inside." That earned him a sharp look. He didn't flinch. If anything, he felt a strange satisfaction at cracking her composure, even for a breath. They reached the central command deck, where a circular table projected maps of the neutral zones. Officers of both races stood in stiff silence. The tension was more than cultural, it was powder waiting for a spark. Kalen bent over the table, scanning the flickering star charts. Power fluctuations in the Western Ring. If they're not fixed, you'll lose half your life support systems. A Veari officer bristled. "Do not lecture us, human." Leora raised a hand, silencing him. "Let him speak." Kalen met her gaze. "I've repaired hulls in asteroid storms. This station is bleeding energy, and whoever designed it didn't plan for sabotage." He let the word hang, heavy and deliberate. The officer stiffened. Leora's expression remained unreadable. "You suggest treachery?" "I suggest caution," Kalen said. "Systems don't fail this neatly without a push." Silence followed, broken only by the hum of machinery. For the first time, Kalen saw Leora hesitate, not fear, but calculation. That night, as he walked the maintenance ring, he heard the groan of metal shift unnaturally. A moment later, alarms wailed. The lights snapped to red. Kalen sprinted toward the breach. A corridor had buckled, air venting into the void. And there, struggling against the pull of decompression, was Leora. Her robe whipped violently, her hands gripping the emergency lever that refused to lock. "Damn it," Kalen muttered, launching forward. The suction threatened to rip him from the floor, but he caught the panel beside her and braced himself. "Move," he shouted over the roar. Her eyes narrowed. "I can." "No time." He slammed his hand over hers, forced the lever down. With a violent clang, the seal engaged, and the airlock hissed shut. Silence dropped, heavy and immediate. They both leaned against the wall, breathing hard. Her eyes burned into him, silver and unyielding, but there was a tremor in her hand he couldn't ignore. "You risk your life," she said softly, disbelief lacing her tone. Kalen gave a tired half-smile. "You looked like you could use a hand." Something shifted in her expression. Not warmth, never warmth, but the ice had cracked, just slightly. She straightened, pulling her composure back around her like armor. Do not think this moment grants you favor, human. We are bound by duty, not sentiment. Kalen stepped closer, lowering his voice. Then let's call it survival. And if survival means working together, you'll have to get used to me. For the first time, her silence felt less like dismissal and more like hesitation. Her gaze lingered on his hand, still marked where it had pressed over hers on the lever. The corridor lights flickered back to white. The danger had passed, but something new remained between them, unspoken and fragile. Kalen broke it with a quiet chuckle. You know, for someone with a reputation for being untouchable, you're surprisingly heavy when you're trying not to get sucked into space. Her glare returned, sharp as a blade. But beneath it, just for an instant, her lips twitched. Not a smile. Not yet. But a crack in the ice. Outside the glass panels, the nebula swirled endlessly, cold and vast. Inside the corridor, warmth lingered in the air, invisible but undeniable. And for Kalen, it was enough to know the station wasn't the only thing beginning to shift. The engineers swarmed the damaged corridor after the breach, but Kalen stayed close, watching the readouts flash across the console. Numbers never lied. Someone had cut into the station systems. It wasn't error, it was design. He felt her approach before he saw her. Princess Leora moved with the same composed grace as before, though there was a faint strain in her shoulders now. She stopped beside him, her eyes fixed on the diagnostic display. You suspect sabotage, she said. I don't suspect, Kalen replied quietly. I know. He tapped the screen, highlighting irregular code patterns buried in the power grid. These overrides weren't written by accident. Her gaze sharpened. If what you say is true, then someone on this station intends war. Or at least wants us to believe it's inevitable, he murmured. He glanced at her, gauging her reaction. For a heartbeat, her mask faltered again. Not fear, something heavier. Guilt? Doubt? The power flickered. An alarm buzzed. The doors sealed automatically, trapping them inside the auxiliary wing. The oxygen meters dropped by half. Kalen swore under his breath. Containment protocols. Whoever set this up just isolated us. Leora's composure cracked for the first time. We are cut off. Yes. He tried the panel, dead, and running out of air. Her fists clenched at her sides, but her voice held steady. Then we fix it. Kalen couldn't help a crooked smile. Glad you're not the type to panic. She shot him a look sharp enough to cut steel. Do you mistake discipline for coldness, human? He met her stare, unflinching. Maybe. Or maybe you're afraid to admit you feel anything at all. For once, she didn't answer. Silence pressed around them, thicker than the failing air. They moved to the emergency console, working side by side. Her hands were precise, methodical, while his darted quickly across wires and circuits. At first, she ignored him, but necessity forced coordination. Bypassing this regulator will restore partial flow, he said. Her silver eyes narrowed. It risks overloading the stabilizers. Better a risk than suffocation. Reluctantly, she handed him a tool. Their fingers brushed. For a second too long, she didn't pull away. Kalen caught the flicker in her eyes before she masked it. Beneath that icy exterior, he saw the storm she kept buried. Minutes passed. Sweat dampened his brow as the console fought him. Oxygen levels dropped lower. His breath came harder. Leora steadied the line with both hands, her voice low but urgent. Hurry. He forced the final connection. Sparks leapt, but the lights surged back. Air hissed through the vents. Kalen exhaled in relief. Leora stepped back, her chest rising with controlled breaths. Efficient. Not bad teamwork, Kalen said. Her gaze lingered on him. No scorn this time, just measured study. You are unlike the others of your kind I've met. Let me guess, they were loud, arrogant, and too quick to smile? She tilted her head slightly. Too quick to feel. His smile faded. And you think that's weakness? I was raised to believe so. Her voice was soft, almost reluctant. But you confuse me. Kalen leaned against the wall, catching his breath. I'm good at that. The silence stretched, heavier now but charged with something unspoken. Leora's eyes didn't leave his, and for a moment, the station, the politics, the danger, all of it receded into the background. Then the calm crackled, breaking the spell. A Veari officer's voice came through, clipped and strained. Princess, the central core has been compromised. We require your presence immediately. She straightened, the mask slipping back into place. Understood. We are on our way. Kaelin pushed off the wall, grimacing. Compromised core means someone's playing a bigger game than we thought. She regarded him, hesitation flickering before she spoke. You saved me once already. Do not mistake necessity for fondness. Yet she trailed off, her voice almost a whisper. Your presence does not feel unwelcome. Kaelin caught the words, low and reluctant as they were, and tucked them away. They walked side by side through the narrow corridor, the hum of the station around them like a pulse. Every step carried the weight of secrets, danger, and something else neither dared name aloud. But as they entered the lift, sealed in the quiet chamber together, Kaelin felt the distance between them shrinking, not in steps, but in silence. Her heart might still be cold, but he could feel the first crack in the ice. And he knew, with dangerous certainty, that he wanted to see it break. The central core chamber pulsed with faint blue light, its reactors humming beneath the glass floor. Kaelin felt the vibration through his boots, a low, steady thrum that normally promised stability. Tonight, it carried a warning. Technicians rushed between panels, but their movements were scattered. The main control screen flashed red, core integrity compromised. Leora stepped forward, her presence immediately commanding the room. Her silver-lined eyes swept the chamber. Report. One of the Veari officers, pale beneath the glow, stammered. Princess, we detected unauthorized overrides. If we cannot stabilize the flow, the station will collapse into a Rinder's orbit. Kaelin scanned the readouts, his jaw tightening. These aren't random overrides. Someone planted them. The code signature is deliberate. The officer bristled. You accuse our people? Kaelin didn't look up. I accuse the person responsible, whoever they are. Before the tension could snap further, the chamber doors opened. Commander Sareth entered. His tall frame filled the space, his armor gleaming dark under the reactor light. The air thickened the instant he arrived. Step away from the console, human. His voice cut like a blade. Kaelin turned, steady but wary. If you want the station to survive, let me work. Saretha's eyes narrowed. Peace is a facade. Humans pollute it with weakness. This station was always doomed. A murmur spread through the officers. Leora's expression didn't change, but Kaelin caught the subtle tightening of her hands at her sides. Uncle, she said, voice cold as the steel around them, you speak treason. Sareth gave her a sharp smile. I speak truth. Our empire rots when chained to human sentiment. Better the galaxy burns than we kneel to them. Kaelin stepped closer to Leora, lowering his tone just enough for her to hear. He's behind the sabotage. Her silence confirmed it. She had suspected, maybe even feared this moment, but hearing it aloud weighed heavier. Saretha's gaze fell on Kaelin. And you, little human, think you can thaw what is unbreakable? You mistake her curiosity for affection. She will never betray her blood for you. The word struck sharper than any weapon, but Kaelin held steady. If loyalty means letting billions die, then maybe blood isn't worth the chain. Leora's eyes flicked to him, an instant of raw conflict, emotion breaking through her mask. Sareth saw it. His sneer deepened. You dare let him sway you. He drew his blade, a curved Veari weapon shimmering with ion energy. Officers froze, torn between duty and fear. Kaelin shifted, ready though unarmed. Leora, you can stop this. Her voice was steady, but softer now, carrying strain. Uncle, put it down. The station is not your battlefield. Sareth advanced. If she will not choose, I will cut the choice from her. Kaelin moved instinctively, stepping between them. The blade's energy buzzed near his chest. You'll have to go through me. For a breath, silence filled the chamber, broken only by the reactor's pulse. Then Sereth laughed, a dark, hollow sound. So be it. The blade slashed. Kaelin ducked, grabbing a metal rod from the maintenance kit at his side. Sparks hissed as steel met ion energy. The clash reverberated through the chamber. Leora's command voice rang out. Stand down. But her uncle pressed harder, eyes burning with conviction. Kaelin strained under the weapon's force, his muscles screaming. He knew he couldn't hold forever. Leora, systems first. Stop the collapse. She hesitated. For the first time, duty and blood warred with something deeper inside her. Her uncle's fury against Kaelin's defiance both demanded her choice. The reactor alarms wailed louder. The chamber shuddered. Leora's voice broke through, sharp and commanding. Guards, restrain him. But the officers froze, unwilling to move against their commander. Sereth roared, striking again. Kaelin staggered, rod bending under the blow. Then Leora moved. Swift, decisive, she activated the chamber's lockdown protocol. Energy fields surged, surrounding Sereth in a shimmering cage. He slammed his blade against it, but the barrier held. His eyes burned betrayal. You choose him? A human. Her chin lifted. I choose survival. The words echoed, heavier than any declaration she had spoken before. Kaelin, chest heaving, lowered his makeshift weapon. Their eyes met, hers conflicted, his steady. But the danger hadn't passed. The core still trembled on the brink of failure. Kaelin rushed back to the console. We've got minutes at best. Leora joined him, without hesitation. Their hands moved in tandem, his swift improvisation balancing her precision. Sparks flew, alarms screamed, and the room spun in tension. Redirect the secondary conduits, Kaelin muttered. I am on it. Her voice was tight, focused. Their shoulders brushed as they worked, every second counted. The core stabilized slowly, reluctantly, until at last the warning lights dimmed. The hum returned to its steady rhythm. Kaelin exhaled, sweat stinging his eyes. That was too close. Leora didn't answer at first. She stood rigid, staring at the console as though it held the weight of galaxies. Finally, her voice slipped out, low and conflicted. He was right about one thing. You confuse me. Kaelin turned, searching her expression. Confusion's better than indifference. Her eyes softened, only for a breath. Then the mask returned. Do not mistake survival for sentiment. He allowed a small smile. Then let's call it both. The chamber settled into uneasy silence. Officers avoided her gaze, torn between fear of Sereth and loyalty to their princess. Sereth himself stood caged, eyes burning with venom. You cannot bury the truth, Leora, he spat. Your heart may falter, but our people will not forgive weakness. She didn't answer him. Instead, she turned to Kaelin. For the first time, she looked less like a princess of ice and more like a woman caught between worlds. Come, she said quietly. We need to ensure this station holds. And you should stay close. Kaelin followed, his chest still tight from the fight, his mind even tighter from the storm she stirred inside him. Behind them, Sereth's voice carried through the barrier. This is not the end. Your alliance will collapse. And when it does, so will he. But Kaelin barely heard. His focus was on Leora, on the fragile cracks forming in the armor she wore so carefully. Cracks that revealed something far more dangerous than sabotage. Hope. The station's corridors buzzed with hushed tension. Word had spread. Commander Sereth imprisoned. The core narrowly saved. Princess Leora standing with a human at her side. Every glance carried questions, suspicion, or fear. None dared speak them aloud. Kaelin stayed close, though exhaustion pulled at his bones. He'd fought engines that wanted to explode, storms that could shred steel, but this was different. The threat wasn't just machinery. It was a man convinced war was salvation. And Sereth wasn't finished. Inside the command deck, officers argued. Power allocation, treaty enforcement, security measures, each voice louder than the last. Leora raised her hand, silencing them. The sabotage ends now. My uncle will face trial under both councils. Murmurs rippled, but none opposed her. Then the screens flickered. Saratha's voice cut through the chamber, cold and triumphant. You think you've caged me? I built contingencies. While you play at diplomacy, the reactor countdown continues. You saved the shell, not the heart. In 1 hour, Irinder, 7 burns. The feed cut. Alarms wailed. The station shook under the weight of his words. Kalen's stomach dropped. He left a trigger buried deeper than we reached. Leora's voice was steady, but her hands trembled at her sides. How do we stop it? He studied the readouts. Manual override. At the core itself. But whoever goes in won't come back. The containment field will fry them before it shuts down. The silence that followed was suffocating. Officers shifted, but no one spoke. They knew what it meant. Sacrifice. Kalen broke it. I'll go. Leora's eyes snapped to him, silver-wide with shock.
No.
You cannot. Who else? He forced calm into his voice. I know the systems. I've patched every bypass, traced every circuit. If anyone has a chance, it's me. Her composure cracked. You would throw your life away for strangers? His gaze held hers. Not strangers.
People.
And maybe for someone who stopped being a stranger. The words hung between them, heavier than gravity. She stepped closer, her breath catching. You confuse me, Kalen. You force me to feel what I was taught to bury. And now you ask me to watch you die. He reached out, fingers brushing her wrist. The contact was brief, but it burned. Sometimes we don't get to choose. But if this ends war before it starts again, then it's worth it. Her lips parted, as though to argue, but no sound came. At last she whispered, Then I go with you. Kalen shook his head, soft but firm. If you die, your people lose a leader who believes peace is possible. If I die, they lose just me. For the first time, emotion carved through her mask, raw and unhidden. You are not just. The chamber quaked again. No time left. Kalen pulled away, turning toward the access hatch. Leora caught his arm. Kalen. Her voice broke on his name. He turned. Her hand lingered at his sleeve, fragile yet unyielding. Return to me, or I swear, I will tear this galaxy apart. A crooked smile tugged at his lips. That's the first time you've sounded human. He left before she could reply. The core chamber roared like a beast. Energy surged in violent arcs, casting wild shadows across steel walls. Kalen fought against the heat and static, forcing his way to the control array. His skin prickled, lungs heavy. He tore into the panel, fingers flying. Sparks seared his hands, but he didn't stop. Over the comm, Leora's voice rang, sharp with command, yet thick with something more. Kalen, status. Working, he gritted out. Tell me you've got a drink waiting after this. A pause. Then, softer. If you live, I will give you more than a drink. The words fueled him. He drove the last connection, overriding the corrupted loop. The countdown slowed, but the failsafe remained locked, manual disengagement required. The field roared, searing any who dared approach. Kalen's chest tightened. He had seconds. Then he heard movement behind him. Leora. She stepped into the chamber, her robe whipping in the static. Leora, he shouted, panic spiking. Get out. Her eyes burned with resolve. We finish this together. Before he could stop her, she pressed her hand to the opposite panel. Energy flared, searing the air. Her face contorted with pain, but she didn't falter. Kalen cursed, slamming his palm against his own switch. The twin override screamed, heat tearing through his arm. For a heartbeat, the galaxy vanished in white fire. Then, silence. The core stabilized. The alarm stilled. The hum returned, steady and calm. Kalen collapsed to his knees, lungs heaving. Across from him, Leora sagged against the panel, sweat glistening on her brow. Their eyes met through the haze. She whispered, ragged but fierce, You live. So, do you. His laugh was broken, breathless. Guess I didn't have to die after all. She crossed the chamber, kneeling beside him. For once, she didn't hide. Her hand cupped his cheek, trembling. I cannot deny it any longer.
You thawed me.
Against reason, against duty, you warmed what I thought frozen forever. Kaelin leaned into her touch, every ache worth this moment. Her heart was as cold as space, he murmured, echoing the thought that had haunted him since their first meeting. Until I held it. And then she kissed him. Not formal, not guarded, raw, desperate, real. The chamber faded away. The galaxy could burn or bloom, but in that breath, it belonged to them alone. Later, as order returned, Sereth was dragged from his cell, furious and defeated. His words rang hollow now. The station still stood. The treaties still held. But more than that, something deeper had shifted. Princess Leora, the woman of ice, had chosen to stand with a human, not out of strategy, but out of something far more dangerous to tradition.
Love.
Kaelin stood beside her, hand brushing hers in silent promise. Their future was uncertain, perilous, tangled in politics and shadowed by war. But for the first time, neither of them felt the cold.